Hello, my name is Dilly MacFarlane, and this is the Alumni Special. Today I'm happy to welcome as my guest Sister Alice Mailman, who is the coordinator of the outreach program in St. Michael's Parish in Spryfield. Hello, Sister Alice, welcome.
Hello, Dilly.
I'm glad you could come in today to tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do with the poor in Spryfield. Now, you graduated from the Mount.
Yes, I did.
In what year?
1975.
And what was your program of study while you were here?
Well, I completed a BA and a BEd.
And you then consequently went to teach in the public school system.
That's right, in Sackville.
In Sackville. Now, Sister, how did you become involved in your work with the poor in the community of Spryfield? How did it all begin?
Well, I suppose it began when I finished teaching. I went into religious ed work. And then from religious ed, I went into parish work. And when one is involved in parish work, you become involved with every kind of person. And so I went to St. Michael's a year ago in September, and I was lucky enough to have a young woman with me who was learning the religious ed program. While we were there, we became very aware of the need for someone to work in outreach. There had been someone in that work 2 years previous. And the year we were there together, there was no one directly involved in the outreach program. So as the year went by and Elizabeth, my apprentice, was able to take over the religious ed, then I was able to move into the outreach.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, how were you made aware of the needs in that community, Sister? By your parish work, by calling on the homes of the people who were members of the parish and seeing what their needs were?
That's right, and they themselves come forward very easily. You cannot really live in Spryfield or work in Spryfield without getting to know the people. And they come forward. St. Michael's Church has always been has had a long tradition of helping the poor through its St. Vincent de Paul Society, and also through the priests and the different ministers who've been in Spryfield. It's had a long tradition of being there for the poor, for those in need, and so the people come very easily to us.
I understand that Sister Geraldine Lancaster has a program operating in the Spryfield area, a support program for single parents.
That's right.
And
yes.
do you both operate then out of St. Michael's, or is Sister Geraldine's program a separate entity?
Sister Geraldine's is really an arm of the Home of the Guardian Angel.
Oh, that's right, I see.
And it's for the single parents.
I see.
But Jerry and I work together in the outreach program. We make connections because some of the same people we would be involved with, there are people who come to me and I send them to her because she would provide the specific program for them, and then others would come to her and then she would pass them on to me if she feels that I can help them in any way.
Yeah. Sister, I would expect that a lot of people would say, when they ask what you do, and people say, well, the poor must be looked after. Someone is looking after them. There's welfare, there's unemployment insurance. There shouldn't be any poor. What would your response be to something like that?
Well, I guess the important thing would be to see that everybody is poor. We are all poor in one way or another. And my specific work is with all human needs, not only with those who are without food. Those who are without food, definitely. Those who are without clothes, those who need shelter, those who need furniture. Our population is quite transient, so that people come and go very easily. There are many poor people in the sense of lonely people, people who are coming out of marriages, who are coming out of institutions, either sometimes mental institutions and sometimes the homes that we have, Ad Sum, Collins House. And so any human need that surfaces comes into my area in one way or another. And so I would say I am just as poor as they are, but I receive a lot from them. They might receive something from me, hopefully they do. But I think that everyone is poor. And in Spryfield, it's a special group, probably.
At the same time, Sister, would you say that everyone is blessed as well?
Oh, definitely, yes.
I rather thought you might say that. Sister, I'm curious to know what is your daily routine like? What do you do? Well, I know that you don't live in Spryfield, but you don't live far from there. But I expect you still have to get up fairly early in the morning.
Well, not too early. I arrive in Spryfield between 9 and 9:30, and every day is different. There is no one day I could say would be the same as another. Basically, when I come into the rectory, I work out of the rectory. But my work takes me with all different faiths and all different kinds of people. When I arrive at the rectory, there is usually at least 2 or 3 notices on my desk that I've had already that morning to phone people back. And that could be anyone from one of the churches calling about one of their programs and to do some networking between us, or it could be somebody in need of food, somebody in need of furniture. Now, for instance, just for an example, what this morning was like, we had received a call last week of someone moving out of their own home, and they were in need of furniture, and they had heard that we receive furniture from people who want to get rid of their used furniture. They give it to us, and then we try to pass it on. Sometimes people want to pay for it, and sometimes they can't, but we allow them to do what they can. So I had this request, so I thought, well, the best thing would be I had a connection with someone who had called me with, say for instance, it was a hideaway bed. I was on the phone calling the person back when the man arrived, and so he was in need. So I went into the parlor, and we made all the, really, just the connections. A lot of my work is making connections. People who have and people who have not. And the people who have then want to give, and those who don't have receive very easily. And so I just finished with that, and a woman called. The woman had met me a year ago, but had not really come forward, was in need of some kind of volunteer work, some kind of work within the community, has been in a situation of either separated, married, or divorced, and really had a desire to come out of herself, had lived in her own apartment and really needed to reach out, but didn't know where to go. So I've been really lucky in that I have worked with the separated and divorced and widowed within a program within the church, and so I could explain to her what that was and how, if she wanted to get involved in this, then she could very easily, and this would help her. One of my dreams for St. Michael's, or the area really, is to provide some kind of support system for people after the age, say, of 35, 40, people whose children are now grown, who do not able to work, either because of mental problems or because of any kind of difficulty in their own education, but have a great desire to be part of the community, and who have a need and really have gifts to give, but need a way to do that. And so, like the Single Parent Center, as you mentioned, takes care of women who have small children and who are still in those parenting years. But people who've passed those parenting years, sometimes they're alone, sometimes they have family, but they're not close enough to really kind of be that support system for them. It has come to my attention recently, the need for something like that. And so I'm just in the process of looking at how to set up some kind of a support system, work-related, volunteer-related.
It sounds wonderful. It sounds in a way, Sister, that your efforts in a community which is, I know, a very transient community. People don't, although I know that there are people that have lived there for generations, but right. A good number of them don't stay too long. And I suppose it's difficult in a way to develop the kind of family support that it would be available to, for instance, someone who grew up in a small town or a little village where people are aware of your needs and they know how they can help you best. So you really are providing a vital service that wouldn't otherwise be available in that way. That sounds very exciting.
Yes.
So, could you relate to me and any sort of interesting anecdotes that I'm sure that because you see people in every sort of stage of their life, you see people who are feeling wonderful because they're able to give, people who are in great despair, people who are really in a state of crisis and change and so on. I'm sure that you must have a number of interesting experiences that you could relate to us.
Well, when I think of one experience at Christmas time in particular, a moving experience of this one woman, an older woman who came, who at Christmas we invite people to give us some money or food so that we can help others. And so this one woman, she was older, and she came to the door, and years ago, a good 20 to 30 years ago, she said when she was young, or when she had a young family and didn't have enough food for Christmas, the church helped her. And now that she was much older, she didn't have a whole lot of money, but she wanted to share what she had. And so she came with her widow's mite, I guess you would call it, and it was just so very touching to see her, after that many years, to still remember that others had helped her, and now she, in turn, could help others.
And she knew what it was like to be hungry at Christmas time.
That's right.
Are there really people hungry at Christmas time in this wonderful community where we live, where everybody seems to have so much? Are there people who need food?
There definitely are people who need food. I think probably at Christmas is one of the times when people do reach out very easily and are willing to help others with food. I would say probably February. This month is a very hard time, and people have very little. There are days when people have very little. I have been in people's houses, and they have very little in their cupboards.
What can we do about that, Sister?
Well, one organization that I belong to is the Metro Food Bank.
Oh, yes.
I'm on the board of the Metro Food Bank, and that has been, I would say, one of the most marvelous things that has come about. That people who have food and money, some of the big suppliers, will give us their supplies, and then other agencies, the food bank directly brings the food to other agencies. Well, one of them is ourselves, St. Vincent de Paul Society at St. Michael's. Another is the United Church and the Anglican Church. And I think it's really important in the Spryfield area, this ecumenical kind of networking as well. So I suppose supporting the Metro Food Bank is a marvelous way to help.
And now is a good time to do it.
Yes,
and
very good time.
That telephone number can be reached. It's in the directory, I expect,
right.
is it? Sister, before we go, I wanted to ask you if you could describe briefly, I'm sure that you took part in the Futures Assembly that was held here at the Mount 2 years ago, I believe, wasn't it? Could you briefly describe what that experience was like for you, meeting young religious women like yourself who are working all over the world in every area of the nurturing professions of education and healthcare and social work, and can you tell me briefly what that experience was like for you?
Well, I suppose it probably would be like coming home, in a sense of coming together. Like many of the people who were at that meeting, I know them by name or have seen them in passing. But to be together in one sense of looking at our future as Sisters of Charity, and also to see how our congregation has focused on working with the poor, being aware of the issue of women in the world, and how peacemaking, like those three issues probably, just to realize how important it is that we are together and to be able to have the time really to share the future, our hopes and dreams for the future. I guess that would be an overall experience.
Well, Sister, I thank you so much for coming to speak with me today and for letting our viewers know about your work with the poor in St. Michael's Parish, and for reminding us all that we're all a bit poor in some ways and we're all blessed. And thank you for letting us know how we can help with your work.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome, Sister. and I'll invite all of you to come back next week to join me again for more of the Alumni Special.